I'm joined now by Baiba Braže, the Foreign Minister of Latvia. Our country shares a 280-kilometre border with Russia and has been a strong supporter of Ukraine, providing $1 billion in military and humanitarian aid over the past 3 years. She joins me now live from Riga. Thank you so much for your time. We are understanding that Latvia will be attending a virtual summit with President Trump tomorrow, as we've been hearing all week. Europe and Europeans trying to ramp up pressure on the president ahead of this meeting. What will your message be to President Trump, and what will you want to hear from him in return at that meeting?
We, both as Latvia, but also as a member of NATO and the EU, of course, have the closest possible relationship with the US. We work on a bipartisan basis with all administrations. That relationship has been formed through defense, military cooperation, through democracy and values, but also human connections and economic interests. And as you might have heard, we have committed spending 5% already next year. We are more than 4% already, and that is growing. So there is the sort of very large understanding both of what President Trump is trying to achieve, which is peace through strength, and that is supported both in Latvia but also in the EU. But in the same time, also to be realistic about Russia's objectives. We still do not see any indications within the Russian system that President Putin would like to have peace. They tried to subjugate Ukraine first before 2014 through sub-conventional means, hybrid means, corruption, taking over politically. Then in 2014, through annexing Crimea and starting the war in eastern Ukraine, Ukrainians have fought throughout this time. Then in 2022, it was a full-scale aggression and attack. And Ukraine is standing. Ukraine is fighting back. It's self-defense. So Ukrainian agency matters. Ukrainians have to own the peace. Whatever terms of the peace that is, they have to own it. So we, of course, will support in this respect the ultimate objective of President Trump. We want everyone to be very realistic about President Putin and his objectives.
Sorry to jump in there. There's just a couple of things you said. I mean, you're right. Ukrainian agency matters here, but we do know that Ukraine will not have a seat at the table on Friday. And you said President Trump is serious about peace, but already we have heard talk of him, discussion and talks from him about land swaps happening, the potential for what might occur during that face-to-face meeting with President Putin. I have to ask you, if things do not go the way you want with President Trump, what leverage do you have, and are you prepared to use with President Trump in order to get him to listen to your point of view?
Again, we work across the board. We work with the administration, with the parties, with think tanks. I think there's a mutual interest, there's a genuine common objective in achieving peace and stopping Russia's aggression. It's a genuine objective. Everybody wants peace, Ukrainian the most. And in the same time, being realistic that Putin and Russia is trying to get through other arrangements what they can get through war. The war is not succeeding. They are not getting what they want. Ukraine is standing strong. So they are trying, of course, various other means. So we just have to be very realistic. President Putin and President Trump obviously will meet, and conversations are ongoing. You will have seen there are public references to various conversations. Our point is, again, Russia is a long-term threat. It hasn't changed. The objectives have not changed. So let's make sure that we stand strong ourselves as NATO, as allies, that we support Ukraine throughout, whether that's a peace process, whether that's a ceasefire, which is essentially important for any peace talks to succeed, but also in its objective to become a proper Euro-Atlantic integrated country. That's Ukraine's objective.
You sound very resolved to respond or react to whatever comes out of that meeting, knowing that it is essentially out of Europe's hands. We also know that President Trump has threatened sanctions against Russia, but not followed through on that threat. If it remains that way, will the EU and can the EU meaningfully apply sanctions without the US's backing? Is that something you will be looking to do?
Having agreed, all of us at NATO summit at the end of June, that Russia is a threat to Euro-Atlantic security, whatever ceasefire or other arrangements we achieve, and again, it's a joint Euro-Atlantic, US-European effort and objective. It's very important to make sure that our strengths, our capabilities, and weakening Russia is in place, because Russia, as a power currently, uses military means to achieve its political objectives. That is not the way how countries run their relationships. So very clearly, Russia has to be forced to peace, and that was a threat of the sanctions by President Trump, but also the long-term, more than 3 years long political economic pressure by various countries, including the EU, but also other countries in the world, making sure that Russia's economy is weakened, that its military capabilities are weakened, degraded. Those objectives stand, because while Russia is and will be a long-term threat, we cannot relax and say that because there's a ceasefire in Ukraine, that Russia has suddenly changed. So that is where, yes, very much hoping for a good outcome of the meeting on Friday, very much hoping and relying that Ukraine is able to defend herself and its ideals and values, like we all have. In the same time, of course, being very realistic about Russia is important.
Yes, and if there is a ceasefire agreed to, of course, that it will come with those security guarantees. Foreign Minister, I just wanted to ask you, because there's a lot happening, as you know, this week, I just wanted to pivot to ask you about the situation in the Middle East and Gaza. We have seen Prime Minister Netanyahu announce moves to gain total military control of Gaza City. Please just have a listen to him speaking at a press conference a few days ago.
Israel's Security Cabinet instructed the IDF to dismantle the 2 remaining Hamas strongholds in Gaza City and the central camps. Contrary to false claims, this is the best way to end the war and the best way to end it speedily.
The best way to end the war is to move forward with Gaza City, in the Prime Minister's opinion. But multiple foreign governments have come out against this, and the UN have said this will lead to a calamity. Where does Latvia stand on this issue?
We have also gone public, of course, with a clear statement that we do not support the extension and expansion of military activities in Gaza, that it will bring more civilian calamities. It's not going to resolve the conflict politically. There is no military solution in our view. Having said that, of course, it's crucially important that Hamas releases hostages immediately without conditions, that Hamas puts down the weapons, gives up political control of Gaza and other control of Gaza. At the end, that is a terrorist group. It has been recognized as a terrorist group, not only by the US, but by the EU. And just accepting the fact that they can still control territory from where Israel was attacked is not going to be possible.
But Hamas are much diminished, as we know, in the Gaza Strip. We only just last week had 600 retired Israeli security officials writing to President Trump saying that Hamas no longer poses a strategic threat to Israel. So you're right in calling, obviously, for the return of the hostages. But the idea that Hamas are the threat they once were is being denied by multiple sources.
There are various views on that, but the fact is that they are not releasing the hostages. The fact is that they publish videos that degrade the hostages, that are just humanly horrible. So let's look at the facts. We can speculate what's, their strength or not, but that's not for me to do. I look at the facts, and as long as Hamas is doing what it is doing, it's very clear that political solution is becoming more difficult, and both sides are taking to more radical positions, which is gonna bring more civilian losses, human catastrophe, insufficient supply of food, medicine. There's a whole whole spectrum of issues that are deeply unsatisfactory about Israel not respecting international humanitarian rights.
Can I ask what your plan is then to assert pressure on Israel to reverse course on their plans for Gaza City before it's too late? Because we know that Latvia are not one of the nations calling for a two-state solution like we've seen from Australia, France, Britain and Canada. So where do you intend to apply pressure?
We have a very balanced foreign policy. We talk both to the Palestinians. We have recognized Palestinian Authority as a legitimate representative of Palestinian people. And we have a special representative residing in Riga that covers Palestine. We met President Abbas last autumn. We have hosted in Riga the working visit by the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We have spoken on the phone. We just had the President of Israel visiting. And those are robust conversations on all sides because there are, again, our ultimate aim is a two-state solution that is arrived at through the political settlement. And that is done in accordance with the UN Security Council resolution. And that is very clearly both with regard to territories, institutions, and the future, and both countries living side by side in peace, which will be economically, politically beneficial for the whole Middle East. That is where we are.
Can I just ask, the recent visit from President Herzog was to discuss the war, but also to discuss your economic ties with Israel, which are substantial. I mean, you are still trading with Israel to the sum of $70 million in exports a year.
Correct. It's not among the biggest trading partners, but it's still a trading partner. We have a large community there.
And you don't see that as a means to apply pressure on Israel?
As I said, there are robust conversations ongoing. It's, we talk, and we apply pressure both in bilateral talks, but also through public statements and collective statements. There will be another statement coming out today on international NGOs, their right to operate, supply assistance to Gaza and other places. So again, Israel is as I said, a country with whom we work. We maintain diplomatic relationships. It's a friend. And we have a large community there. They have a large Jewish community here. So we make sure that our diplomatic relations are there. But in the same time, we do not agree to Israeli policies, whether that's with regard to respect of international humanitarian law in Gaza or expanding military activities in Gaza or anything else. So that is something which we believe where the engagement can bring actually some results instead of isolation.
Foreign Minister, we really appreciate you coming on and giving us your thoughts today in such an important week on both fronts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you so much for having me.